on Twitter, somebody said, we need 4K videos of UFO and we need NHI bodies.
Okay.
And then you said,
I know that exists.
You said, I know it exists.
Okay, yeah.
I know directly.
I know directly that right now in our government, there is cell phone video ending the conversation about the triangles once and for all. And that is cell phone video. That's not even imagery. Cell phone video within 100 feet of it. I know it for a fact.
And you know that we have high-res imagery of UFOs.
100%. Because again, I know what I had and I know what was redacted from me because I wasn't read into the SAPs. As for the bodies, I'm glad you brought this up. I want to be clear. This is where this gets into fun. I am sure these things exist. And during my whistleblower through Arrow and the IG and Congress, like I said in Weaponized, when people ask a question, when you understand why they're asking a question after you make a statement, but I believe Dave, I trust Dave. I know what I know what I've been told, I know what I testified to, and I know what came back as was confirmed. I know what Arrow and hypothetically the IG have told me directly in skiffs. It absolutely exists. There's no doubt in my mind. None at all.
And you're sure we have craft and hangars all over the country?
I don't know about all over the country. I'm sure we have craft.
Yeah.
I'm sure they exist in a hangar somewhere or underground, wherever they're at, but we have craft.
But you know that they're not just these aerial objects that are ephemeral, that we don't understand. You know that we have been studying them on the ground in isolated conditions.
I'm sure of it. But again, this gets into the fun stuff we were talking about, hypotheses.
Yeah.
You know,
But that's not really a hypothesis. You're extremely
I am sure there are craft that were not made by humanity at this current time and place when we recovered them. That is no doubt. Where they come from, no idea. You know, this is one of the things that people always attack this subject. They want to lump me in with quote unquote aliens and little grays and all that. That's not the truth. I've never said extraterrestrials exist. I've never said we have proof of extraterrestrials.
But non-human. We
have craft that were not made by humanity at the time we recovered them. Major difference. We recovered things that were not made by us.
Could be
when we found them.
Future or ancient humans.
Past. We talked about the hypothesis of a human soul and us going to another planet and we're watching ourselves.
And these are more advanced than
clearly
F-22s and F-35s.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah. Okay. So wild. So you experience this and then what happens next?
With the triangle? Or?
Yeah, with the triangle.
Dude, I went back to the dorm room, smoked a cigarette, and played Borderlands or Call of Duty. I mean, I went back to work. I talked with a couple of my buddies, and, you know, people heard me talking, and I won't get into it, but they know who they are, and I love them. And I talked with them a little bit after the hearing, and they got real sketched out when I was like, yo, people want to talk about this. I can protect you. I'll bring you forward, ghosted. But, you know, people would share with me their situations with these things. But that was really it.
At that point, had you met anybody who claimed to work on the program directly?
No, not at all.
Okay. But they were just, when you say their situations, their sightings.
You know, it was, so like, I had an excellent tech sergeant. He was a prior load master, which I don't know if you know what that is. They're the guys who load up C-130s, C-17s, make sure the weights are good, make sure everything's good there. He clearly knew what was going on. My tech sergeant was the one that was like, Dylan, don't talk about this ever again. You have no idea what you got yourself into. I ran into a security forces guy who was a Raven, which is some Air Force stuff, but he was a Raven, and he was talking about a situation in North Dakota where a C-17 landed. They dropped off a box. It was this whole ordeal in the middle of the night.
What was in the box?
No idea.
Okay.
He was just told a C-17 landed. They were called in. They had to surround the hangar in North Dakota. They brought the box in. They were told, don't let anybody come here other than this general or anybody coming with this general. They were there for 5-6 hours. C-17 lands, open up the hangar door, throw it back in the C-17, a new one, and off it goes. Again, so to be clear, again, I am very factual based. Who knows? Maybe it was some Chinese stuff or Russian stuff, but we were talking about this while I was at Langley, and people were just telling me odd things they experienced that were out of place. But yeah, man, I went back to the dorms, back to the barracks, and chilled, and that was that.
How'd you end up at BAE Systems? And what does BAE stand for?
British Aerospace Engineering. Ended up there. I finished my master's degree, and my background and my education, they wanted me there. So I took the job. Needed to work at, what was that, 26, 27? Yeah.
And you've called that kind of multi-agency role. I don't know if this is an example of a thing that you can say anything more about.
We're getting fun. I my resume speaks for itself. I can say I work for BAE Systems, going back to OD&I and the BS they pulled. If I can't talk about it, at least what I know, because again, I've never been through DOPSR. I'm not approved. Like I am, everybody knows.
You're going off script.
I'm literally just out here existing, man.
Yeah, good.
But, I don't want to get into the agencies I work for because to the best of my knowledge, without going through clearance to talk, the last I heard, I'm not allowed to talk about the agencies I work for.
Can you say generically you were working on special access programs?
Yes, 100%.
Yep. And so you're working in this capacity and you run into other people that you think are on the UFO program directly.
Yes. So I was working at BAE and I was talking about the triangle and other things I was aware of. And somebody who worked for the government in a program knew what BAE was doing to me with my clearance and had heard about what I was doing. I worked with them and they heard about me talking about the triangle and they thought I was read into the program because they were. And that's when this began, this whole thing. There were about 2 other people who were absolutely read in. And that's when I came into knowledge about a very specific program.
And okay. Interesting. I just looked at your shirt. Okay. It's a very specific program. So was this like an overarching umbrella legacy program, like a multi-generational crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, or like an isolated thing?
I want to be respectful. I mean, their accesses were pretty large in scale, but their job was fairly large in scale. What you got to remember is historically, if you get read into a special access program, usually they allow you the backlog, and they were able to backlog a lot of the historical stuff, and they had found out quite a bit.
Interesting. Okay, so, oh man, my mind is jumping to all sorts of places. So it's like if you have a legacy UFO reverse engineering program and it's not in the digital age for many decades, a lot of knowledge is going to get lost. A lot of taxonomies aren't going to get created, and you're going to need something in the modern day to kind of concatenate all of that knowledge, to put it all in kind of a central database, find deeper patterns with some of these things.
Yeah, I want to be careful here again because I love this country. I love this country. I mean, this is what I said. Under oath, I said the Constitution shredded. Why I became a whistleblower is because I was concerned about people's safety, not UFOs. I know what they did to me. I know what they did to others who were in these programs. I know how the read-ons worked, at least for them and others. I know where they went. I know all of that. But there is at least in their instance, a historical backlog that once they were read in, they went and began to dig into. And that's when those individuals began to get into trouble. Yes.
Let's just talk instead about like the specifics here, because I don't want to get you into trouble, kind of high level, how you think the UFO legacy program works, because there are different narratives out there as to how it actually functions. So you think that these are physical craft, and you do think there are bodies as well and freezers, essentially?
I don't know about bodies and freezers. I know there's a genetics component to it.
You know there's a genetics component.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
I know that there is, at some extent, Dave called it biologics. There is no doubt in my mind that there is something dealing with genetics. And Dave said specifically that there are pilots that were recovered with these UFOs. And I do believe Dave, and I want to be very careful. You and I talked about this. You know where my line is with my knowledge outside of government, where I draw a line. I think that is true. Yeah. I think. Personally, I know it's true, but I'll leave it there. You get in a remote viewing, and we're talking about Midnight Climax, MK Ultra, Mockingbird, and we're talking about all those programs. It's almost like it's an umbrella program under ESP, Sixth Sense, UFOs. It seems, in my opinion, and knowing enough that I do know, officially from government and being a whistleblower, all of that is connected up under one umbrella. And Lakatsky and Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, all of that ties into it. I mean, they almost admit it. So
MK Ultra, all of these like off the books programs all tie in together.
I think I'm sure a lot of them do, but again, going back to what we discussed with intent.
And so I think of those programs that you just mentioned as CIA programs.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. So like the larger umbrella is CIA, and then there's like is there some department there? I mean, a lot of people name Glenn Gaffney, who's the director of science and technology there, as being one of the last leaders of the legacy program. Eric Davis said that he was the guy on my show.
Well, I would love to talk to the head of the crash retrieval program during that era, but he refused to talk to us.
And that was Glenn Gaffney?
Yeah, Glenn
Gaffney.
I think they're absolutely correct. And then you get into Department of Energy, and we discussed this. So 2023, Dave testifies. I go to the ICIG. I have my attorney. The following year, Congress signs into law. They get the president to sign it. And they say, hey, by the way, you need to redefine credible and urgent. And oh, by the way, whistleblowers going to the ICIG, if they disclose CIA secrets and Department of Energy secrets, they are not allowed to be prosecuted for espionage. So why is Congress creating a law saying that the following year from whistleblowers coming forward after Dave comes with 40 other witnesses? Kind of coincidental, don't you think?
They are allowed to prosecute whistleblowers for espionage.
I believe that is one of the arguments that was being made at this point in time, which is, well, even though they followed the law, you disclose information to the Attorney General outside of the control group, and you violated the law. You get into secret laws now.
You get into like restricted data, the Atomic Energy Commission's 1954 Atomic Energy Act, where things are born secret. And if they have anything to do with, I think it's a transclassified nuclear material, anything dealing with any of this stuff, then upon retrieving a thing or upon coming into any information, that is already a state secret that you have possession of. And so this idea would be that if you were to tell that to the IC Inspector General, the Intelligence Community Inspector General, who's kind of playing this judicial role within the intelligence community, then you'd be able to be prosecuted?
But this goes back to what we talked about earlier, is technically DNI is supposed to oversee the CIA. That's not how it works. The CIA answers to the president. DNI answers to the intelligence community, which Congress has sort of oversight over.
Mm-hmm.
Department of Energy is almost basically the same as the CIA. They answer to whoever they want, and they claim executive branch privilege. So whistleblowers going to the ICIG, disclosing executive branch classified, inherent and born classified, presents a problem, and that's why Congress had to create the legislation in 2024. Hypothetically.
And hypothetically, there are radar signatures that pick up UFOs, and are they in a specific range, hypothetically?
Hypothetically, yes.
Okay. Interesting. And so you're finding out a lot at BAE Systems, and this is like water cooler talk, or like, how are you figuring this
I don't
out?
want to get into specifics because I am so protective of people, and I feel so bad for the people who were harmed by this. People who I love and I care about and have been through a great ordeal with me, by themselves, with me personally, without me. Dave, when your job is taken from you, you lose everything, and you witness somebody else going through it, and they're talking about things that you were brought into. It impacted them in a way. So this goes back to, like I said, my thing was when I heard that people's lives were in danger, that's why I acted. If I had never heard that, I would not be a whistleblower. Like, the UFO subject, all of this is whatever. I know what I went through, and I know what others went through, and I do believe that. This is why Sullivan and Dave and everybody else, Herrera, the threats, all of it, messed me up. That's real. All of this is real. I don't want to call it water cooler talk. It was like trauma bond. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah.
So you're in a situation doing an insane job with insane accesses, with insane knowledge, watching other people get screwed by the government.
Yeah.
And it's like, who else do you talk to? And this goes back to Vanguard. This goes back to what Matt and I are trying to figure out. And even the experiencers, we're trying to help each other because we're all lost in the woods, and I don't want to call us outcasts. We can only rely on each other until this gets over the hump.